Hello there. You're watching and listening to another Scoutcast from www.fantasyfootballscout.co.uk, and my name is Mark.
And my name's Jonty.
My name's Andy.
And Luke.
Good evening, gentlemen. For the last time this season, it's the Scoutcast. We've just had the whistle blow on game week 37, which went pretty well. More of that in a moment, but it's thank you for joining us. And we've got to start with Andy for the attire. I think he started as a tradition here. Andy, what's this? Is this? Have you just come from a wedding or from a job interview? What's going on here?
Yeah, I was going to say I probably look like someone who's just left the office, but yeah, I thought we all Christmas stuff for Christmas. I thought for the last day we'll treat it like, or the last Scoutcast we'll treat it like a FA Cup final and put a suit on.
I think Jonty, I think he's onto something here.
Yeah, I know. I wish I wore a suit now. Just got.
I gave you guys good warning too, so I don't know what yours are.
Yeah, I need 48 hours warning this, especially today. I had a bit of a shock. I just about managed to make the Scoutcast, but I think from now on, Jonty, game week 1 and game week 38, we turn up in suits. What do you reckon, Jonty? So Little Bird tells me you've only just bought a suit, Jonty.
Oh yeah, first suit in a decade. I'm usually wear check shirts and jeans, and now I've got an actual real suit. So yeah, I'm up for that. Game week 1, let's go suited and booted.
Luke, you up for that? Game week 1?
Yeah, I've got to put all these wedding robes to use, haven't I?
You've got a wardrobe full of them, surely, I wager.
I have, but they're about 80 quid from BHS, so they're not going to blow anyone away.
Okay, let's get some serious talk going. Welcome to the Scoutcast. We're going to talk about game week 37, which has just finished with the final whistle at Anfield. Lots to talk about there. Chips are in play, bench boost, triple captain. 3 of us had a triple captain. Worked out all right, I think. We're going to talk about that. Then this Scoutcast is going to be a big season retrospective. We're going to look back on our seasons, look back at what went right, what went wrong. I've cracked it. I know exactly what went wrong. I've had a good look at my my mistakes this year, and I've found 2 big villains. I've only got myself to blame. Let's see whether the other 3 on the Scoutcast have got the same kind of story. And then we're going to look forward to game week 38, which is always a lottery. We're going to look back at the history of game week 38. I think Jonty's done some crack research into that and see whether we can predict if there's going to be any final day heroes this time around. First of all, though, Jonty, let's look at game week 37, and it went pretty well, especially for you. Yeah,
it went really well. Well, I had Payet as my triple captain, and you said it in your preamble before the game week started about the nerves of the triple captain, and it's much worse than a bench boost. You're putting so much. You've been waiting to use this chip, and you put so much in one player, and all it takes is a twanged hamstring in the 5th minute, and that's it. Luckily, Payet didn't happen. He did go down in about the 10th minute. He fell over, and that was panic stations. And then West Ham just turned it on, and he just did what he did, and he fired in the assists as well. And he should have scored, and Carroll should have as well. I know, disappointing week.
He had a poor game actually, Payet, because I was watching it, and I obviously was dreading. I don't even have Payet, and I was dreading the damage he could do. But he had one very good chance the first half. He had a couple of chances second half. He managed to scrape the assist together, quality deliveries. But actually, I think I got off lightly because he could have done some serious damage.
There was 2 free kicks in particular he really should have scored, and he was very, you could tell he was, he knows he could do better. I mean, that could have been 2 goals and 2 assists that game, definitely, but it wasn't. But it was fine. It was triple captain. He got me double points, so it got me 30 plus for a triple captain. I can't complain with that. And I bought in Carroll, so that didn't go well, and bought in Van Aanholt. Great. Fantastic, that goal threat was there. I got rid of Kane because I'm sticking to my Spurs don't do well without Dembele.
Yeah, good theory.
Lo and behold, what happened at the weekend? Well, they didn't do well without Dembele, and that will continue. And I got Sacco out, so Liverpool Sacco that is. And so I think I'm on 103.
You've got that top 10k in the bag.
I'm going into the game week at 6,000, and I've caught up a bit more on the top 10,000 average. So I should be somewhere around 5,000, I think.
Yeah, good work indeed. I didn't go Carroll my triple captain. I went Hazard. And Andy, you were saying before we came on air that I talked you and Luke out of this, did I? Because you went Carroll, didn't you? Is that right?
Yeah, I think I just got sucked in. I don't rate Carroll at all. And then, listening to you guys, made him sound like he was a good option. Then I suddenly thought, well, Hazard's not really got much to play for. Is he going to do the business? Probably not. So somehow I came to the conclusion that Carroll was the best captain option I had. And yeah, he's just awful. He's just an awful player. And yeah, the great chance against United, he just I don't know what he was thinking. It's like he almost thought that someone was going to catch up with him, even though he was in miles of space. He didn't even like try and shoot around De Gea. De Gea just stood there, did nothing. So yeah, really annoyed about that. To be honest, it's probably one of the worst mistakes I've made this season. Triple captaining Carroll. Obviously, it's hindsight, but all my other players did well apart from Milner. So
yeah, I was on Carroll for most of the week, and then I think what swayed it. I saw that Jonty had gone Payet. I saw that he'd played safe, and I thought, well, I haven't got Payet, and I can't get him because I wanted Creswell. So I didn't want to go Carroll because I knew Jonty had Carroll. So I thought, well, what I'll do, I'll put it on Hazard and hope Payet blanks and Hazard goes crazy. Didn't work out. But it could have done, and so I did swap it at the last minute. I honestly had it on him with 5 minutes to go, and just thought, no, let's risk it. It didn't look like it was going to pay off for me either, but it did tonight. He got the goal. He had an incredible game from what I hear. Luke, you also went Carroll, is that right?
Yeah, I was all set for Hazard. I said I was going to do Hazard, but again, as Andy's mentioned, you were just talking him up beforehand. I think John's had a load of stats on Payet, all the deliveries. The thing that added to it was obviously the Swansea team sheet when that came out, and they're going to be resting Ashley Williams and everything, and obviously the history with Carroll with Swansea. It seemed like it all made sense, and it was that opportunity to get like a really good differential. Obviously it didn't work out like that. But.
Well, that's it, wasn't it? It was all about the Swansea game because we really thought that they were going to tank them, and Ashley Williams not playing. They're going to play a reserve side. West Ham, I think they'd averaged 2 goals a game in their previous 7 games, so we thought, well, they're going to get 2, could get 3, and Carroll loves playing Swansea, always does well against them, so the logic was there, and I was really, I'll tell you what, the reason why I didn't go Carroll at the end is because I did wonder whether he'd be rested. I thought that he could play Sacco or Valencia and save him for the United game, so the reason why I didn't go that was that, and when I saw Carroll on the team sheet, I was absolutely bricking it, because I thought, well, that's it, Carroll's going to hurt me. And it turned out to be a good decision because West Ham had an absolute mare. Carroll got no service, and he came out of that with nothing. And then he came out of the United game with nothing as well. It was just unfortunate. So Andy, how many points did you get in the game week at the end?
Looks like I'm going to finish on 84, but I took a 12-point hit, so it's only like 72 net. So not the greatest, but I mean, it's really the captaincy that's killed me because all my attackers, like I said, apart from Milner, did something. So yeah, it's really triple captaincy's let me down.
And you, Luke, how'd you get on?
I got 73, but I didn't have my triple captain, and obviously I captained Carroll was one of my lowest scorers. So overall, I suppose I got to be fairly happy with that. Lukaku, Coutinho, had a lot of players going in tonight that many people wouldn't have had because they've just been in poor form, and I thought maybe they could do something because at least they started, but yet again let me down. So there it is. Yeah,
I nearly kept Coutinho myself, but I nearly got rid of Lanzini. That proved to be a lucky decision as well. It was just, there's so many tight decisions to make, and I think you're right, Jonty, about that triple captaincy. It felt horrible, didn't it? It's the first time we played it, first time we've had this option, and it just happened that we were playing it in a game week where it was actually a tough decision because we didn't necessarily want to back Aguero because he had a single game week, and Kane as well. And so it opened it up to a cast of players who we would never normally put the armband on. I mean, even Payet, who's been very consistent, wouldn't necessarily go to him for the armband. Not only were we putting the armband on him, we were backing him for a triple captain, which it was nerve-wracking, wasn't it? It felt like I'd rather not have this chip on Saturday morning, but in the end it worked out okay in our case. But it's a difficult one, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean it is, but I mean that's why I went for Payet because it's the kind of worst case scenario. But midfielders get more points; they get more for a goal, and they get a clean sheet point as well. So when you're triple captaining, that's suddenly 3 points just for a clean sheet in one game. So so it all mounts up, and that's why I went for him. And I thought he's surely going to get an assist, maybe 2. Luckily he did okay in the end. But I probably would, with a triple captaincy, I don't think I would ever go for a striker. I mean, depends how it falls within a double game week next season. But for me, I think a midfielder has to be the one, and one who hasn't got too bad an injury record and is fairly consistent. So for example, last time, if I'd have used it the last double game week, Sanchez would have been my one, not Aguero. I wouldn't have considered it on Aguero. 2 away games. Hindsight is I can claim I would have, but I would have only have gone for that midfielder with a range of points there, and that's why I went for Payet. If I had Hazard, I said Hazard to lots of people on the site. You know, if I had Hazard as well, I'd have seriously considered that as well. I thought that was a good move. I thought Carroll would score big. That's why I got him in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was that Swansea game that was the thing. I really did think he'd get 1 or 2 goals in that, and I was watching that Swansea, watching for goals in that Swansea game rather nervously, but we got away with it, and unfortunately Andy and Luke got conned apparently by me on that. So I listened back. I don't remember. We're going to do a Chips post-mortem now, John T, aren't we? Because I think it's worth doing because it's the first season we've had them. And we've just played a triple captain. We've got our experiences there, and we've got our experiences of game week 34, which was a bench boost as well. So, yeah, a few questions on this.
Yeah, so I mean, Chillpill and Dead Star asked, amongst many that have asked about this. So Chillpill asked that now that all the chips have been played, did it work out as you thought? In that that certainty that we had on the Scoutcast that we would. The kind of people who kept them back for the double game weeks would overtake those that had used them earlier in the season. So I've turned to one of our regular community writers, Cavalli, who's done some research on the veterans, which is kind of our slot on people that have kind of won it. And
it's loosely people who represent, kind of fancy football scout people who've been playing. Yeah.
So he's monitoring experience there, not necessarily whether we're any good, just experience.
No, definitely not.
So for game week 34, so that was the key one. We all structured our wild cards and a chip around that. So the average that week was 79. That was big, but the top 10k average was 124. And amongst the veterans, so it's 34 kind of people. I suppose typical fantasy football scout people. 157 average. So more than double, and then looking at game week 37, so the current overall average we think is going to be 55, and into the top 10k it's going to be around 79. We think by the time it goes out we'll have this confirmed, and already looking at Fantasy Football Scout today. So these are people who have been using their chips. They've been using their bench boost or triple captaincy this week. Well, already they're coming in. I've got 100, 115, 120 I saw. These types of scores are coming in. And so were the chips a success? Did patience pay off? Definitely. I think absolutely, definitely.
I think so. Two things are clear, right? I think the whole idea that chips to be played in double game weeks, I think that's confirmed, isn't it? I mean, in our experience, double game weeks, they've worked out because you look at the triple captain, and for me, Hazard didn't do anything in the first game. He got me the goal and maximum bonus in the second. Same for Payet, nothing in the first game, 2 assists and 2 bonus points in the second. So there's no doubt the double gaming is a scenario for these, I think, because otherwise it's a lottery, isn't it? We talked about the bench boost, and I made the case that, at least in a double game week, even with rotation, you should be assured of getting 15 players to get at least one match, whereas in a single game week scenario, you could have 2 or 3 of those players missing, just losing their place or rest and rotation. Happens week to week, doesn't it? So unless you're lucky enough to have 15 nailed on starters, it's hard enough to get 11. So it's difficult, but it's got to be double game week. So that's the first point. And then I look back at game week 34, and I looked at myself, John T and Andy. Luke, you played your bench boost differently, didn't you? When did you play your bench boost?
I can't even remember now.
You played it earlier, before 34, I think.
No, I think I played it in 34. It's just I did my wild card the week before that in order to triple captain Balassi in the double beforehand. Yeah.
Okay, so you didn't go the wild card 33 and the bench boost 34 combination. Andy, John T and myself did, and in all 3 cases, game week 34 was our best game week of the season. So, I came 6,870 in the world. John T came 10,123, and Andy 11,128. In all 3 cases, after the wild card and playing the bench boost, we had our best game weeks of the season. So we looked back on it then and thought, well, it went okay. It actually went much more than okay, because we didn't have stellar seasons, but clearly we played game week 34 well, and all we did was we did the wild card, and maybe we lost some ground in game week 33. A lot of the players, like the Spurs players, came in and we got punished, but 34, obviously, John T went really well for us.
Well, I'm at the same stage. If if I go increase on my rank of 6,000, so say 5,000, I'm at basically the same point I was this time last year. And I thought last year went really well, and the consensus is this year didn't go that well. But I think because of the strategic use of these chips, this year's ended up pretty much the same as last year. It just hasn't seemed like it's gone well, and I think because people have used their chips earlier, so the overall ranks have been corrupted in a way over the season, and it's something we're going to have to get used to. I think we're going to have to get used to looking at very poor ranks up until about February, March. And then we start getting double game weeks coming in, and then suddenly we'll see ourselves climb up the tables. I think, as you mentioned, those ranks of us in game week 34, that was a huge boost. And that's just not us. That's loads of people who look at Fantasy Football Scout or wherever. Those people kind of in the know. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking next season. I think it'll be exactly the same. Get used to poor ranks at the beginning, and then shoot up the table.
Andy, I mean, you're a big advocate of the chips. You couldn't wait to get going with them. So, I mean, you agreeing with this? You think it's a success?
Yeah, I mean, obviously everything in isolation. My rank isn't still that great, but in terms of mid leagues and stuff, I flew past people that didn't follow the same tactic, who've been ahead of me for weeks and weeks and weeks. So, yeah, for me it worked. The next week, game week 35, wasn't great. But since then, it's been okay. So yeah, I'd say it's a success. The only thing I think I would do next year, which we'll come on to later, I know, but bench boost, I think I overestimated what it was worth, which stopped me from triple captaining in game week 34. So I just thought, I've got 15 players. It's hopefully worth at least about 25 points. I valued that at, and wasn't expecting Aguero or Sanchez to get 25 and 26. So yeah, I triple captain, I'd definitely say for a double game week next year. It just won't be Andy Carroll.
Yeah, I think that was a one-off though. We can't. I mean, again, game week 34 was odd in that we got severely punished in 33 when we played the wild card, and then the guys who played triple captain, both Aguero and Sanchez came in. That didn't have to happen. I mean, they came in really heavily. I mean, Hazard and Payet came in for Jonty and I, but we got 12 extra points out of those two, whereas Aguero and Sanchez, it was 20 odd. So that may never happen again. It might be, where next season there's an obvious week to play bench boost, there might not be the triple C options like Sanchez and Aguero there. So, if anything, that could be quite a unique scenario rather than one that we see every single season. Equally, I don't know whether we're going to see a game week 34 with 5 extra fixtures. It's going to be interesting to see, but I don't think there's any doubt. I think they worked in the way we played them, but they could have worked even better. I think we kind of overestimated the impact they would have in some ways, but when you look at the results, you can't argue that it was a tactic that worked for us. Luke, one question that a lot of people are asking, are they a good thing? I mean, people are saying that, I've seen some comments on the site saying we'll get rid of them, we don't like them, but what's your view on that?
I think overall they give us more to talk about, more to think about, adds a bit of fun to the game overall. I think for me it does also add a tad bit of extra luck, which I could do without because this season I haven't had any, it appears. But I don't know. I think overall they are a good thing. They just get more people involved, and as for a casual player as well, it's something that they can tell their mates about, and they can put it on Aguero in a single game where you can get 5 goals out of it, and it's absolutely amazing. By that same token, for us more hardcore players, though, obviously, if we put it on Balassi like me for a double and get absolutely 0 out of it, it can ruin a couple of weeks after that. But there we go. I think overall I enjoyed them. I'd like to see them introduce possibly other things as well, or at least change the all-out attack. I'm not sure I'm a fan.
Yeah, all-out attack was a bit of a kind of red herring, wasn't it? I think I can't even remember when I played it or what I got out of it. I do know that after I played it, I thought, I wish I had it, because there were game weeks after that where it seemed like it would be a useful thing. But I don't know. I think that one needs to look at. Jonty, your view on the chips? I mean, it's a thumbs up, isn't it?
Yeah, totally thumbs up. The two we mentioned, the bench boost and the triple captain, is absolutely great. All out attack, I agree with you. That. I think that if they could keep it next season, the way I'll use it is perhaps not to use it. I'll only use it if I have to. If I don't want to make a transfer, and I've literally only got 2 defenders ready, so perhaps after an international break or one of the blank game weeks might be useful there. But so many times I've seen people use it, and I think when I used it as well, what happened to the 5th midfielder? Well, he didn't start, so the defender came on anyway, so it was a waste I think that's happened so many times. It's not really worth it. What you want is another chip. I think with the bench boost and the triple captaincy, you should be looking at least 10 extra points. So between 10 or, the case of Aguero and Sanchez that week, an extra 25. But 10 plus, and I don't think you really get that with all-out attack. So if they come up with another chip, I'd like to see it where it's something you could genuinely get an extra 10 plus points for.
Interesting. Hot topic for tomorrow, John T. Your choice of a new chip. Let's see if people can come up with one. I think they've got to do something like that. Yeah, I don't think all-out attack warrants being kept. I don't know. I think something along those lines.
I don't know.
All right, 10 points.
I thought maybe it gives you a free shot, as in your captain becomes whoever your highest scorer is in that week. Literally, your captain is no one. Whoever your highest scorer is, that becomes your captain. Yeah,
hello.
Mostly luck, but that's something I thought maybe.
That would be nice. Yeah. That's a nice idea. Yeah. There you go. There's a start.
There's a few floating around, like your vice captain gets points as well as your captain, so you get 2 captains essentially that week. A lot of the ones I've seen there, they seem to just be making it more like UFPL, so you can change your captain. But obviously, they've already got that in a different game, so I don't know if they'd bring stuff like that in. But yeah, I think there's a few things we can do. I'm sure if you make a hot topic tomorrow, there'll be loads of ideas.
Yeah, well, let's do that. Let's get some ideas in. So I think we're all agreed. Chips, thumbs up, but all-out attack. It's either got to be tweaked or it's got to go. Okay, John T, next question. I think we're going to look at our season as a whole, aren't we?
Yeah, so I've just kind of bundled this up as regrets and brags. So French Gooner, Godfarmer, the Red Devil, Mark Harborough, all pretty much asking the same things. What's been our best, worst moves, best, biggest regrets, favourite moments of the year? So, for me, basically, it's literally a season of 2 halves. A lot of the first half, I have regrets not jumping on more bandwagons. I did get Payet game week 2, and I did get Mahrez game week 3, so I got on them. That was good. But I didn't go for Vardy. I completely failed to get Barkley, and I completely missed out on Ighalo as well. And these were huge stories. Barkley got 7 goals and 8 assists in his first 19 game weeks. I missed a lot. But basically, worst moment for me this season. Anytime Barkley scored, he had about 40% ownership. Anytime he scored, I knew I was getting a red arrow. No matter what I did, I couldn't, but I still didn't get him in. Should have done. But the best move second half of the season. So I started moving the captaincy around a bit. Finally, having a bit more faith in Mahrez and Payet for the captaincy. Brought in Sigurdsson early. So he got nine goals in 9 out of 14 game weeks. So I managed to get most of those. Getting on that Leicester defence, having a double Leicester defence for a period. Always having a Leicester defender. Favourite moment, Sakho's goal, weirdly, for Liverpool, game week 34. Completely out of the blue, unexpected. It gave him 15 points, and he was so low owned. He was about 1% ownership. So that was a huge boost to my rankings there. I think a lot of people probably say Aguero's 5 goals. You come to expect that now from him in game week 8. So
he's going to do it once, isn't he? Probably in game week 8. Yeah.
So that's me. That's me. I imagine probably quite a few with very similar things. But I don't know about yourselves.
Luke, I think we know your worst moment. That's got to be the triple captain Balassi, is it?
Well, by that stage, I was just mucking around. Didn't expect anything from that, to be honest. I think my worst move and best move simultaneously has got to be having Vardy in game week 1 to see that he actually had some potential there. He scored for me. I thought brilliant, and then for some reason I removed him in game week 2. So
what?
I know, it's insane. I can't even legislate for why I did that now. So
was it booze? What was on the brain at that point?
I'm pretty sure I wildcarded game after game week 1 because it was such a shocker. If you remember, right. I think like 26 points and players weren't playing, and it was just a travesty of a start aside from Vardy. But for some reason, to make my team better, I decided against having him in. Took him out game week 2, so it pretty much was downhill from that point, I think. Other mistakes, I had Harry Kane for the first 6 weeks when I think nobody else really fancied him much. It's quite expensive. Obviously, it was kind of suggested he wouldn't perform as well as he did last season. And for 6 weeks, he literally returned 2 every single week. I finally get rid of him, and then he just exploded into action, and everyone had him. And of course, because of that, I refused to get him in for quite a long time, just being stubborn. That was another thing that really hurt me. Ighalo was probably my saviour overall. I still came to him late, but at least I got him. Game week 12, I think it was, up until I think about 17. I actually captained him twice in 16 and 17, and he got me 14 points and then 26 points as captain. that's when I actually did like pretty well when he was in my team, and then as soon as he went off form, I started reverting back down again.
Yeah, he was a strange. I've never had him all season. Never had him. And Jonty says it's a missed opportunity but like Barkley, a guy who had that spell and then just completely went off the boil.
Yeah.
But you caught that, so you did well with that at least. I think the Jamie Vardy thing, it's understandable. I think a lot of us kind of didn't have that faith in Leicester to maintain it. I think we got on Mahrez quite early, but Vardy, we took some persuading to put faith in him to double up on the Leicester attack. Andy, that was certainly the case with you, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that's probably my, apart from triple captain Carroll and getting no points for, I think biggest regret has to be Vardy. I have had him this season. I've not got a single one of his like 22, 23 goals, whatever he's at now. So yeah, I was the same thing. It got to a point where I needed a striker. I think it was like game week 7 or 8, and obviously I just said to myself, well, there's no way Leicester can keep this up, and neither can Vardy, and so I bought in Mitrovic instead for Newcastle.
I remember it well.
He scored against City in the first game, which I was pretty happy about. I wasn't necessarily expecting points, and then obviously after that it was just downhill. Vardy was scoring every game at 12 in a row. I didn't have any of them, so yeah, that was a definite regret for me. I got on Mahrez like everyone else really early, like game week 3, I think. But yeah, Vardy has been a nightmare this season for me.
Best signing of the season for you? I mean, best move? Can you find one amongst it?
Yeah, I don't want to echo Johnny too much, but I got, after watching Payet in game week 1, I think it was against Arsenal, I really liked him, so I moved on him straight away. So I kind of like that move because it was just based on watching him, not on his stats or anything else. So yeah, I kind of like having Payet. And one actually, maybe a bit more boring, but I actually got on the Leicester defence a bit earlier than most people and actually doubled from about game week 20.
I remember, yeah.
I had Schmeichel and Hu, so that was doing really well. And again, Jamie Vardy decided in game week 27 that I really needed him, and I got rid of Hoof, the game he scored 2 goals against.
Yeah.
So Vardy is just, he's the one that's really
he's
killed
been the villain of the season for you, hasn't he? In a season where he's been player of the year in some respects. Certainly I think he was Leicester's player of the year. Yeah. I mean, Vardy was a gift to us, really. It should have been something that we all benefited from, and yet I look at my season, I didn't get him until game week 8. He'd scored 5 goals by then. And yeah, I had Mahrez game week 3. I jumped on him early. Missed out on Vardy, and I think Jonty touched on that as well. We didn't really start putting faith in Leicester for the captaincy until it was too late. So Mahrez and Vardy, we missed Vardy's 11 goals, 11 games. We missed Mahrez's double point hauls that he was getting. I mean, we were even benching. I remember benching Mahrez a couple of times when he got double figures, and I was close to it on other occasions. I think it took us to about November for us to actually be convinced that, hello, this Leicester's this is for real, isn't it? And that's why Andy Goddard had such a good season, isn't it, Jonty? Because he was on him from the start, and he was unshakable in the faith in Leicester.
Yeah, I mean that was the key thing, isn't it? Is that Leicester, near the top of the table, can they maintain that? Pretty much all of us would have been thinking, no, they can keep going for a little while, but they do like Igalo. That's what I saw them doing, like with Watford. They were just suddenly going to because their squad wasn't big enough. But what's happened is they just barely rotated. They've all kept going. I mean, they're probably, after they had a party, they're just going to flake out, surely. I know they've got international duty, but they're just going to keep carrying on. And this is why I am still reluctant to go for Leicester next season. We'll come to this about what we learned for this season. But one of the reasons is I just think after that season they've had with that lack of rotation and internationals for most of them, surely there's going to come a point when they have, or maybe they're not, maybe they're just robots. I don't know. Maybe Andy does know something that we don't.
Yeah, well, I mean, looking at my season further, I mean, Mahrez, I got on early enough. Vardy, I got there in the end. I missed 5 goals, but I've pinpointed where I went wrong. Basically, game week 7, I should have got Mercer Ozil in, and instead of that, I tried to be clever. Typical me, and went for, I don't know if you remember, I went for Eden Hazard at game week 7. So I kept Hazard for 4 weeks. I missed out on 7 Ozil assists as a result of that. Hazard got me nothing in that spell. And then when I actually realised I'd made a mistake with Hazard, of course, I went to get Ozil, didn't I? No, I didn't. I got Sadio Mane in game week 11, so I ignored Ozil again. And I kept Sadio Mane until game week 21 and didn't get Ozil until that point, where I eventually took Sanchez out and got Ozil. And in that spell between 11 and 21, Ozil got 2 goals, 9 assists and 16 bonus points. And Mane got 2 assists. So effectively, had I gone Ozil in game week 7 instead of Hazard, or even if I realised late and gone when I got rid of Hazard, I'd gone Ozil then. Money wasn't a problem. Hazard to Ozil, easy. But I didn't. And basically, my faith in Hazard for 4 weeks was wrong. My faith in Mane for 10 weeks was absolutely disastrous. And then coupled with that, I kept Ayew from game week 5 to game week 28. I think you remember this, Jonty, when towards the end you were plugging Sigurdsson. And for a while, I thought Ayew. The thing is of Ayew, and this is why he's probably the villain of my season along with Mane, is that Ayew did just enough to persuade me to keep him. In those 23 game weeks, he got 5 goals and 3 assists, which is poor, but he spaced them out perfectly. So every 4 game weeks, he got me a return. So every time it got to the point where I was like, this guy's got to go. He went and got a goal and assist. He got a goal and assist in 3 matches over that spell. So he got double figures in 3 matches. But he did nothing around that. And so Mane and Ayew are to blame for my mediocre season. I think had I got Ozil, which was a dullard move at the time, but he was on fire. He got 71 points between game week 7 and 15, and I completely missed it. So yeah, that's it. That's where it went wrong. Other than that, my memories of the season, game week 16. I don't know if anyone remembers when I put Zuma, when I went to get Jeffrey Schlupp and I transferred Zuma out and by mistake instead of Schlupp rather, and then I was so angry with myself I transferred Zuma back in about 10 minutes later. So I just used my double transfers to put Zuma out, put Zuma back in again. Absolute disaster. And of course the other major mistake in my season, Anti-Aguero, which lasted 2 or 3 weeks, but John T, I think you remember the agony that I went through and the controversy on this Scoutcast when all 3 of you were trying to talk me out of it, weren't you?
Yeah. Well, it's obvious now in hindsight. I know at the time it was felt, he wasn't performing that well away, and so expensive. There's so many other players you can get for that. But I think the point we made at that time was his kind of return to form, as it were, really. Coincided with the great form of much cheaper players like Sigurdsson and Ali. And Ali, in particular, was the reason I was able to get, and so many other people were able to get Aguero, and just simply not care. I mean, just thinking about price, another facet of this season, currently I have 4.4 million in the bank. We'll come to our moves for the final game week, but the move I plan to do is going to leave me with 6 million in the bank for game week 38. I've never known that before. Now that just shows you that things like old attitudes about price are immaterial. It's the player. We knew that with Kane the season before. Forget the price. Look at the player.
This is it, isn't it? Because you look at it, and Mahrez and Vardy are going to be probably 10 million next season, maybe 9, but Mahrez will be 10 million, I'd have thought. And yet it took us till November, December for us to actually realise that we've actually got these players are worth 10 million, and we need to think about them as if they are worth 10 million and not worth 5 million, and actually put the armband on them. That's the case, isn't it, Luke? It's almost like the price kind of puts players in boxes for us, and some of us, certainly I do, struggle to think about those players outside of that box and always think of them as 5 million players. We saw it with Kane last season, didn't we?
Yeah, I was going to say we've seen it before. I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. Even Charlie Austin and people like that. There's been quite in the last few seasons, there's been quite a few players that have been extremely cheap and performed really, really well. And it is still really hard to get your head around it. I don't know why. We always get to the party late, and I think that probably is going to be one of the things I'll take into next season. The thing is, you've got to judge it on each individual situation. For all we know, it could be completely opposite next time, and you see Hazard and Sanchez and Aguero under Pep, they all suddenly become must-haves, and you can't afford to have any other players apart from these really cheap people. So I don't know. We'll have to look again, but it's definitely been a factor and something I'll consider. Price, I'm not really interested in that so much anymore. As long as they look like they represent value in some way, then don't worry if it's high or low.
Yeah, it takes us nicely on to the next question, doesn't it? About lessons learned.
Yeah, so Zofa was once again one of a number asking about this. Given the roller coaster of this season, what have we learned from this, and how are we going to take what we've learned into our game week 1 squads for next season, and any particular players and teams that we're going to be considering. As ever, I always look at the promoted sides because for your cheap players, and they could be good for a good third striker, fifth mid, and maybe a couple of defenders as well. So we've seen the likes this season of Charlie Daniels, for example, who's been great. So I'll be looking closely at Middlesbrough, Burnley, and fingers crossed Brighton, who are coming up. And I'm looking at Middlesbrough's Daniel Ayala. So he's had 3 goals from a defender, so that's okay. But Middlesbrough kept 22 clean sheets. That was the most in the Championship. Now so that indicates they could be like another Watford. In which case, if he's nailed on, as in a lot of the Watford defence haven't been, if he's nailed on, he's got goals in him, and they're going to go for clean sheets because they weren't really a good attacking outfit. They're only about 8th, I think, in the Championship. He's a player I'll be looking at. I'll be looking at his price. Andre Gray at Burnley. Again, there's 23 Championship goals. I don't know if people are not following the Championship. Championship Player of the Season. So if you're looking for another Charlie Austin or Troy Deeney, I reckon he should be 6 million. He may even be 6.5, but I'd be looking at getting him in and seeing if he's going to be a bit of a Callum Wilson at the beginning of the season. And so that's what I'll personally be doing. With the other players, I mentioned my reservations about Leicester. Crazy to have reservations about them, but this season was a perfect storm. Next season they've got Champions League. Next season the other teams are going to be better. There's no way City and Chelsea and Arsenal are going to roll over again. Well, maybe Arsenal might, but Chelsea and Man City won't. So Leicester will have tougher competition, and they're going to have a stretched squad, and they're going to have new people coming in. So what's going to do to team spirit? So I'll be a little watchful eye on Leicester.
Andy, what about yourself? I mean, lessons learned from this season. I mean, you've had you rescued your season in the second half, haven't you? After Christmas, it got a lot better in the new year for you. So I guess you got quite a few lessons to learn from the first half, anyway.
Yeah, I think not to ignore someone that's scoring like 5 or 6 goals in a game. I suppose I don't know if I'll do that much different next season. I just don't know if it's going to be the same as this season. I think Leicester, they did really well. I'm not going to hold that against them, but they're not going to do it again next year, I don't think. And there's probably not going to be a team that'll do it next year. It'll probably revert to the usual 4 or 5 teams who are up there. So I'll probably start off in a similar way with all my money on the pitch, a cheap 5th midfielder I don't want to play, and just kind of have all my money playing every week. I mean, in terms of players that I might want next year, I mean, I don't know much about the teams that will be coming up. I'll wait for the articles to come out. But there's a few players from the teams that are going down, which might be put back into a Premier League club. So you got the guy you mentioned last week, Redmond from Norwich. Someone might snap him up. There's a player who hasn't played virtually all season for Villa, who I really liked at the start of the season, was Amavi, the left back.
Yeah.
I thought he was quite good, very attacking.
Outstanding for them, wasn't he, early on?
Yeah, so if he comes back, and I don't know if he gets snapped up by a Premier League club being out all season, but yeah, he's someone I'd look at from an attacking point of view. But I think, obviously, Aguero will always be on my thoughts. Kane, I didn't give hardly any thought to Kane at the start of this season like Luke did, because I just thought he was really good, but is it just a one-season thing? Obviously, it's not. He didn't start off the season banging in goals, but he's proved that he can do it. So I think I'd have to give him a lot more serious consideration at the start. But yeah, Leicester players I think are going to be priced out for me.
What about you, Luke? You got any lessons you're taking into next season?
So many. Where to start? I don't know. I can't really comment on that. I say it's got to be isolation. I've got to look at the price list in front of me, go through it all. I like to think it will revert to type. This seems to be more of the blip on my record, so to speak, of what I've been focusing on it properly anyway. In terms of players, I think Sergio Aguero, pretty much almost regardless of price, he just makes it so easy. With Pep Man City, he's nearly always the top goal scorer there or thereabouts. He's always captain material. As long as he's fit, I can't see how you wouldn't make that easy decision just to have him in your team every week and just relax on that. KDB is going to be another interesting one. He's just a fantastic player. It's going to be a struggle to fit him, Aguero, and possibly Kane into your team and not have it suffer. I think that's probably going to be the main issue for people next year. You've also got Sanchez there. He's kind of dipped in and out, so he might be the one that people sort of turn away from and more look towards Ozil, see if he can have the same sort of season. But they're the sort of main contenders, I would have said, and then it's going to be made up of, the cheaper players from the Championship and a few little value players here or there. I mean, Payet might be, I don't know, 8.5 something. He's going to be expensive. I don't know until I see the list, basically.
Yeah, it's going to be harder, isn't it? I think it's going to be a big ask to think that we're going to have an Ali, we're going to have a Mahrez, we're going to have a Vardy again. They've been exceptional for us. They're all going to be in the team of the season, I'm sure, which we're doing at the moment. I don't think we're going to see the likes of. We might get one of those. We had Kane the season before, and we might get, Jonty's mentioned Andre Gray, who could really do the job for Burnley when they come up. He's certainly got the record in the Championship. So, I don't know. We can hope for that. For me, I think I'm going to look at the Leicester template and go, okay, it might not be Leicester, but I'm looking at a team who's finishing the season strongly, who could do what Leicester did this season, and that's Southampton for me. It's a team we're going to mention a lot, I expect, at the end of the show. But you look at them and you think, well, they've got a good manager. They've got players like Mane and Tadic in particular, who's suddenly flourishing. If they make the right signings in the summer, Van Dijk as well, I think he's a fantastic player. I think if they can easily keep 15, 16 clean sheets next year. He went through that spell where he'd found that formula at the back, and he had to change it because they weren't scoring enough goals. But I think he'll go back to that 3-5-2 again, and I think he'll try and sign a goal scorer, a regular goal scorer who can help them score goals whilst they're playing that system. And if he does that, I think Southampton are going to be a force. And I think Tadic, he's a player we got on in the first season, John T. We got him for that notorious game week 8 2 seasons ago, and he did the business then. But he has been hot and cold. He has been absolutely hot though recently, hasn't he? And I think next year he could be interesting. I think he's going to be around 7.58 again. I think he could be the bargain. So Southampton is a team I'm looking at as one who ending the season well, could start well. Depends on fixtures as well. But for me, the lesson I've learned is it's midfield. It's punished me before. When I didn't go Ramsey, I didn't go Toure. This year, Mane and I stuck with them when I shouldn't have done. When you think about it, it's pretty obvious because often a template up front is clear. It's normally 3 or 4 strikers. This year it was the case: Aguero, Kane, Vardy, Agallo. For many weeks it was you had to have 3 of those 4. And that'll happen again next year, I'm sure. I'm sure there'll be a period where you've got to have 3 or 5 strikers, basically, a small pool of talent. At the back, you look at fixtures, you can often spot it. John T mentioned Leicester. Andy got on them earlier as well. You could see it, though, with the fixtures they had. They had a run of 10 games. You just think, well, if I get Fuchs, it'll do well. I got on that. Andy doubled up on that. So with defence, you can always play the fixtures and have a pretty good chance of getting some good points in that. Midfield, for me, is that's where your differentials are signed. That's where there are big point scorers, but actually you've got a bigger pool of talent. It can be between 8, 10, 12 players where it's not always obvious, and you can do what I did and fall into the trap, which I fall into every season, where you back a player and you think, this player could score me a goal any week. Ayew and Mane were playing up front for part of the season, and I was fearful of dropping them because they had goals in them, but they went for so long without goals that it cost me. And I was slow to react to the Ozil bandwagon, to the Payet bandwagon. I got him in and got him out again. It took me too long to get him back. And that's where I got punished. So my lesson is I've got to pay more attention to what I'm doing in midfield and be braver with that and avoid players like Mane and Ayew who are explosive but just not consistent. Whereas Ozil and Payet have been, they're not going to get double figures every week, but they will get those drip points, which Jonty, I know you love, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's that kind of consistency. I mean, I'd love to have a good start to the season. I never have. I've always finished okay, but I just never have a good start. And I would love to have that. I'd love to get like a game week score in game week 1 of like 10, 20,000. I mean, that'd be fantastic. Set yourself up. And it never happens, So that's what I would like. But who knows? Who knows?
We'll see how it goes. One thing I want to ask before we move on to the next question of the community. Next season we'll have Friday deadlines, Friday kickoffs. I think there's 10 next year. It's an interesting new variable which we'll look at, I think, over the summer. How do we think that's going to change things? I mean, Luke, you've got some views on this, haven't you? Because all of a sudden, we haven't got that Saturday morning deadline. We haven't got that coming home from the pub and thinking about it after a few drinks and waking up Saturday morning and kind of pondering your transfers. You've got to make it Friday night. You'll come home from work and suddenly you've got an hour to make a decision. I think it's going to change things, isn't it?
I think it's going to catch a lot of people out. Yeah, I think you were mentioning before, and especially in this country, you just went through it there, coming home from work, and I don't know exactly what the games will be 7:45, I assume. Is that what time they're going to be?
Oh, 8 o'clock kickoff, so we'll look at 7 o'clock deadlines, won't we?
Okay, yeah, so I imagine that's going to catch quite a few people out. It's going to be hard to keep on top of that. It's going to be alarms set all around the country, I would have thought. But then, you've got a lot of people who play it outside of the country, and it could work in their favour. It could really help them, because at the moment I think they get up at ungodly hours sometimes to try and sort it out for Saturday morning. So you could have a whole pool of talent who are suddenly more focused. We just don't know. Thankfully, it's only 10. It's enough to make a significant dent, I would have said. But in the future, who knows? It might end up being a more regular thing. It might end up being 38. A couple of years down the line. You just don't know.
John, you got some views on this? It could shake things up, couldn't it?
Yeah, I think it will catch a lot of people out. Change always does. I think once people get settled in, but I think as Luke said, it's around the world. So you look at, say, Australia or New Zealand. So you've got some kind of different times of year, so maybe 12 hours difference. So suddenly they're looking at 7 in the morning and stuff. So that might catch a few people out if they've had a rough night the night before. But if they're getting up for work, that's actually might be easy for them. Just get up from work while they're having their breakfast. They can make that change. Whereas previously, perhaps they're making that change at 11, 12 o'clock at night, and maybe they're out, and I think that will change. I think what people should do is something that I do all the time is to make sure I have a team in place in case something happens, expecting the unexpected, and so if you are going to it, just have something in place where you're happy to go with that. And then, because if you're struggling at work trying to get back, you can't get internet access on the bus or the train.
Oh, I'm feeling nauseous at the thought of that.
Yeah, that would be terrible, wouldn't it? But the problem is we're all going to get the team news in during the day as well, so changes will need to be made as well. So yeah, it's going to catch people out. I'll definitely try and have a team, and the benches are going to be really important. I can see loads of bench points coming in because people aren't going to know that Costa's injured or Aguero's injured that day. So they'll miss that press. They won't have had time to change their team from the press conference.
Well, another interesting thing is we talked about prices not being perhaps having an influence this season, but next season it's one less day. When you think about it, one less day where prices can change because the deadline won't be Saturday morning. There'll be no price changes on Friday night, so you're losing another 24 hours on the price changes. So suddenly, unless they tweak the algorithm to increase the price changes, I doubt they will. We'll probably see it less volatile because if a price doesn't change by Friday morning, it's not going to change by Saturday morning because you've got a deadline Friday night. So I think for those 10 weeks, that's going to be interesting. That might help people. It might hinder people, but that's going to be a factor. Andy, what's your thinking on this? I mean, are you going to be home on time? Are you one for Friday night down the pub where you work, or is it going to be a stretch for you?
No, I mean, usually at like 7 o'clock or whatever, I'll be at home. I'd probably do it at work, a couple of hours before the deadline, and just make sure it's locked in. I mean, the chances of getting any team news that's going to change your plans like a couple of minutes before deadline, you're already pushing it anyway. But I think, like the chips this year, they caught a lot of people out because people used them at the start, not realising that it was for the whole season, not one a week. So I think for the first few Friday deadlines, it'll probably catch people out. I mean, when it's like a 2 p.m. kickoff, I never know until someone tells me on Twitter about an hour before 11. So, yeah, I think people are definitely going to miss out, and it's going to benefit us because, we should hopefully be in the know and ready to go. But like Johnny said, there's going to be loads and loads of bench points, I think, next year.
What I'm dreading is I hate it when I have a captain in the early kickoff on a Saturday, but I'm going to really hate having a captain in the Friday night kickoff. Because you'll then go in the Saturday matches feeling thoroughly miserable, dreading what damage the other captain candidates are going to do.
You get an extra night of sorrow. That's how it works out.
Yeah,
the whole Friday night of ruin.
I'll be doing my preamble at Friday lunchtimes now. It's going to change a lot of things in that respect.
But also Europe as well. I mean, the teams that obviously feature in Europa on Thursday night, I'm assuming here they're not going to be playing Friday as well.
No, sure.
So it's going to cause a lot of fixture changes and potentially maybe double game weeks because surely these 10 are already picked out, or does it not work like that?
No, I think it is. I think you're absolutely right. I think it's a TV thing, and I think the 10 matches probably will be picked out. I don't think they'll pick 10 from the start. They'll probably pick them in batches of 2 or 3, but it could happen, yeah.
So potentially, any teams that are finishing the Europe spots now, you kind of have an idea that they may not be playing on a Friday night, for example. So
I think they'll be exempt. It's really interesting. It's like the chips, like you said. It's like that was new to us, and we've dealt with it, and we've come out of it, and we've got our theories about how best to deal with it. And the Friday matches could be won't be as radical as that, but they will change things. I think it will shake things up. Certainly.
Sorry, go on. Yeah, I suppose it's really going to make a difference as well to the other games. Like, I take it obviously Ultimate and Sky will take into account the extra games. So
yeah,
for games where you need to make loads of changes, it's going to impact them even more. You know, you're gonna have to I lost track in Ultimate this year. I just kept forgetting to make changes and stuff. With an extra day, there's no chance I'll do that for a whole season. So the people that are dedicated, they might really win out.
Well, this is it, isn't it? It's whether or not a dedicated manager, whether the Friday kickoffs are going to give us more an advantage. That'll be interesting. Let's see. I mean, coupled with the chips this year, is it becoming more of a game tailored for the hardcore player, which won't be what the FBL want, but Friday kickoffs might do that. Okay, game week 38, Jonathan. We've got plenty of questions on this, don't we?
Well, yeah, Paolo Di Canio, he hits the nail on the head here. He says, how much harder do you consider the final game week of a season? There's other things at play here. The results, he feels, are a bit of a lottery. Certain things are decided. We already know who's going to be relegated. So how are Newcastle, Sunderland, Norwich, how are they going to be playing this weekend? We just don't know. So one thing I did a bit of research on kind of final day heroes, and I think this shows just how unpredictable it is. So last season, the big scorers on the final game week, well, it was Theo Walcott. He couldn't get a game for most of the season, suddenly comes in, bangs in a hat-trick against
Remember
West
it well, yeah.
And then Loic Remy, well, Chelsea's forgotten man, he suddenly popped up with the brace against Sunderland. And then the year before, so we'll back Luis Suarez, good old Luis Suarez, we're going to get him completely blanked. Liverpool's game with Newcastle, 2013-14. It was about Sturridge and Gerrard and Agger were the scorers there. Dwight Gale got a brace for Palace, so we know he can do that. So it's that kind of player that's going to do well. And then one of my favourites was 2012-13, Kevin Nolan. Popped up with a hat-trick on the final day. He scored just 3 times in the previous 29 matches, and then suddenly pops up with a hat-trick completely out of the blue. And there were quite a few people with him. He'd kind of been a bit of a leftover in certain teams, and so suddenly it was a huge swing for people in that week. So yeah, and Lukaku as well. Everyone remembers his hat-trick. He was on loan at West Brom at the time. Yeah,
and another West Brom player, someone Choi, who got a hat-trick at Newcastle the final day as well. I mean, just out of nowhere. So, do we think that there's a hat-trick sitting somewhere in that game week 38 fixture list? I mean, there could be, couldn't there?
Yeah, totally. I think there is, and one of the reasons is we touched on it there. It is a different game week. Things have been decided. Things are not quite decided yet. There's a kind of a freedom to it as well. Teams like Newcastle. I mean, what's going to happen with Newcastle against Spurs?
Who knows?
Who knows how that's going to pan out? What is Sunderland going to do? They're going to put. Is Watmore going to play? Is Watmore going to start? Is Watmore going to be this hat-trick hero? This unlikely hat-trick hero for Sunderland? What are Palace going to do? The mentality of the Palace players will be interesting at Southampton, because you think, they're going to put a B team now. Well, Swansea put a B team out against West Ham. Look what happened. Palace, these B team, they're playing for a place in an FA Cup final.
Yeah, and you mentioned Dwight Gale. Yeah.
Dwight Gale is playing for his spot in an FA Cup final. There's no way he's going to just be sauntering around. He's going to be absolutely going for it. I personally would not be backing a Southampton defender that week. So it's these kinds of things that people haven't perhaps considered are going to happen.
Yeah, no, I mean it's somewhat of a lottery, isn't it? That's what we say. I mean, you look at the fixtures and go, Arsenal at home to Villa, you think, well, there's going to be goals in that game. Southampton at home to a weakened Palace side, we're hoping that's going to be the case, because we're going to talk about Southampton players in a bit, I'm sure. Yeah, I think we think there's going to be goals in those 2 games for the home teams. Other than that, well, good luck to you. I mean, United could still make the top 4 if City falter at Swansea. So you've got to think that both City and United will be going for it. Around that, though, what's at stake is it's testimonial time, isn't it, for some of these teams? It's lap of honour. They won't be on the beach, but more or less that could mean dull affairs, or it could mean 1 or 2 players just explode points. I mean, we've got to think about Euro 16 as well. There are players like Walcott who, if he gets a start for Arsenal, will want to do something to try and edge his way on that plane. There's a chance. So there's that factor as well. It's really interesting. Things could be shaken up by this if it's close in your mini leagues or top ranks. predicting it is going to be tough, but we're just about to do that with the game week preview. So we'll talk clean sheets first. We'll come to you first, Luke. Clean sheets, Fantasy Island Risk. Have you had a look at the fixture list? I mean, where are you putting your money?
I think you've picked out two there that are going to be probably on most people's thoughts. Arsenal at home to Aston Villa, surely. That's got to be a bloodbath of some sort. And Oliver Giroud, Theo Walcott, they're the likely ones there, I would have said. Even Ramsey, even potentially back in the team. We can all know he can do something. I actually think West Ham Stoke is a potential for quite a few goals there. I know they've both got nothing to play for, but they're just so all over the shop. Stoke, they can't defend for anything at the moment. West Ham have scored a lot of goals recently. I think that could be a really high-scoring game. Lots of different options there from the two different teams. Arnautovic, if he's fit on the final day, maybe making an impression, maybe looking for a move even. I think he's a slight, risk, a good option to pick. Southampton, you've already mentioned. I don't think Palace will do that well. I know Dwight Gale might be up for it, but he scored a brace before. But I just think Southampton in such good form. Palace B-side. I know it kind of smells of the whole Swansea situation last week, but I still would heavily back Southampton in this situation, and I think Tadic is going to be a name that a lot of people would probably look to.
So you're going Southampton and Tadic as your picks then, are you? Clean sheet and Fantasy Island Risk?
Yeah, I don't know whether it counts as a risk, but yeah, I fancy VVD and I fancy Tadic on that day. They'd be my two. VVD's had 12 touches in the last 4 in the opponent's box. He's always a threat in and around that area. 2 on target. I could see him a clean sheet potentially and maybe a goal. Not
the prolific Stephen Davis. 2 goals at the lane, could follow that up, playing in the hole. Yeah, Southampton are full of options, aren't they? Let's go to Andy, though, to see if he's going to pick on the Saints as well. Clean sheet and Fantasy Island Risk, Andy?
Yeah, clean sheets I think are really hard to go for. So Southampton and Arsenal, like Luke said. I almost want to back Everton to get a clean sheet against Norwich.
Oh, yeah.
But they are awful. Howard's last match, maybe he'll want that clean sheet. But yeah, I think it's hard to pick one. So yeah, I'll take Everton. And then I don't know if this is a risk because he scored 3 in the last 2, but Andre Ayew, who you mentioned before, I don't know. There's just something about Man City. I think they're going to concede. I do think they'll probably win the match and take 4th spot. But yeah, I'm looking at Ayew. I might even bring him in this week.
Yeah, he's definitely a good option. I think he's going to be in the differentials come Friday. Jonty, what are you looking at?
Right, clean sheet. This is going to surprise you. Newcastle. Okay, one of the reasons I've got to stick with this Dembele-less thing with Spurs, and they are awful without him, so we know that's fact. And then Newcastle, so looking at the last 4 matches, big chances conceded, way down the bottom. Arsenal and Newcastle just won. So they got the best defences in the last 4 matches, and they're playing a Dembele-less game. I'm backing Newcastle there, last game in the Premier League for a while. I think they're going to do well. And in terms of Fantasy Island Risk, we've had lots of questions about this. Spectrum, Kings of Leon, lots of people asking about them. I think, he scored, did well tonight, Benteke. I think he's going to play. There's no way he's going to play in the Europa League final. 13 goal attempts last 4 matches. He only started 1, so that's not bad. Craig Gardner, he's on my goals imminent table. 13 goal attempts as well, last 4. And he's up against Liverpool B-side. And Manchester United's Valencia. This is someone I've mentioned a couple of times, and a few very savvy people got him in. He's a points machine. 34 points in the last 5 matches. Yeah. 2 assists and 8 bonus. He's a £5 million defender.
Yeah, I mean the only thing with Valencia is he going to be needed for the cup final? Is he going to play Fosu Mensah in that because of that? So, but a good option otherwise. We've tipped him in some of the games. For me, I'm going to go. I went West Brom are the last day heroes, so I'm going to go with them. I'm going to go with a clean sheet against Liverpool's B side, and I'm going to go Rondon for the goals. I just, why not? West Brom have got this habit of doing well on the final day. That looks a good fixture for them. Liverpool are going to have their mind on the Europa League. You're right. The players like Benteke will be playing maybe to edge their way into that team. There's no way he's going to learn. I think we're going to see. A second string team, but Klopp has been doing really well with that rotation, so it's a tough one, but I just think West Brom will go out with a bang. I think they're another team who ended the season quite well, quite strongly. I think they'll do better next year, depending on who they can bring in. Rondon, I see today he said, I want the number 9 shirt next season. I don't think Berahino will be about, so I think he's going to make a statement. I think a couple of goals for him. He'd be my Fantasy Island Risk, and I'll go West Brom for the clean sheet as well. Let's get on to transfers and captain for this week. I haven't really given that much thought myself, but we'll start with you, Jonty, on that, because I know you'll definitely line up the Saints, aren't you? You've been doing that for weeks, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been looking at the Saints. Tadic is the player I've had my eye on. I know, well, I'm 99.9% certain that Firmino is not going to be playing this game on game week 38. So easy move for me. Him to Tadic. Tadic's absolutely red hot on form. I think Southampton. When I was saying not to back a Southampton defender, I still think Southampton are going to win. I just think they might concede, but I think there's going to be a lot of goals there. So Tadic is my one in. Captain, it's Sanchez against Villa. Villa are absolutely woeful still, and no-brainer for me. I'm tipping him, but I can understand if people went Aguero.
Yeah, no risk from you then. Typical game week, end the game. Yeah, keep it steady. You're going to get that top 10k finish, and yeah, I mean Sanchez is the sensible, overwhelming top of the captain poll. It's hard to look beyond him. You've got to be gambling, and you've got to have a good reason to go beyond Sanchez, I think. And Tadic in, yeah. I mean, Andy, is that a line with your thinking as well?
Yeah, I think I got nothing to lose at this point, so. Carroll's going just because he's annoyed me so much. So it'll be. I had a list of differentials, and Rondon was on there. So I think I'm going to be Rondon or Long. Shane Long, obviously, back to Southampton boys. And then I want to bring in Ayew just because I have a feeling. And then I'll bring in one of the Southampton midfielders as well. So I expect I'll get rid of Milner, and I'm probably going to get rid of Payet, actually. Get rid of Payet and Carroll, and bring in Ayew and Tadic or Mane, if Mane's fit and ready to go.
Mane, brave thought from Andy. He's going out with a splash. He's Luke, are you going to be that brave? You can't get Mane back in, surely.
I actually am, and I'm going to be skippering him as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, I've got nothing to play for. Mane, one last hurrah. He's my favourite player. I don't know why, but he is. He has served me well sporadically. It's more often disappointment, but I'm going to take that risk. He's going to be my captain probably. My other issue is Lukaku. I've still got him. I've stuck by him all this time, convinced he would troll me if I
had no idea you still had Lukaku, Luke.
I know, it's depressing, isn't it? He's at home to Norwich. It's the final game. Has he got one more troll in him for me? Quite potentially, but I'm just so frustrated at this stage. I don't care. He's probably going to be coming out for a hit, and I'm thinking Iñárritu from Man City. It's a big risk.
Yeah, good option.
Play. But I think if he does play, given his minutes per goal records, it would be just like Swansea to suddenly turn rubbish again. So I think, he could be a good option. I'll take the risk.
Lukaku owner still. I'm sure there's a support group, isn't there? 9 o'clock on a Wednesday evening, a Lukaku owner support group. That started about 10 weeks ago. You've been going to that? I can't believe it.
Yeah, Roberto Martinez chairs it, I think.
Yeah. John T, that's incredible, isn't it? He's done well to hold on to Lukaku, presumably hoping he'll live up to his reputation, and he's got to be one of the villains of the season, hasn't he? In the way that he's had a good season, 19 goals, 20 goals, but he's hurt us every time, hasn't he? Every time we show faith, it just hasn't delivered.
Yeah, I mean, it's Everton. It's not just him. I mean, we pick on these players as well, but it's just the players that change. And the way Everton are playing at the moment, I don't think any striker would have really done that well. They're just not getting the right service, and they're just playing the season out. I'm not expecting anything from them in the final game week, but as we've seen. Who knows? Maybe Lukaku hat-trick.
My thinking, I've got a problem because I've got Townsend, Iwobi, Sanchez, Hazard, Lanzini in midfield. No obvious route to get somebody out there. Iwobi might not play, but I think he will now that Welbeck's injured. It depends if Walcott gets or not, but I think Iwobi will start. He started the last 9, although Walcott did well when he came on and replaced him. But I think Iwobi starts. So Iwobi, Sanchez, Hazard, Townsend will be my midfield, which looks good. I think Hazard will do well against. Hazard looks like a different player. Looks like the player we thought he would be all season, the player he was last year. So I think he could be good for me on the final day. Not sure I'll look beyond Sanchez for the captaincy, but tempted. So I'll be going Carroll out as well. I'll be joining Andy in the Andy Carroll exit plans, and I might be going Long, or I might go Giroud if I can. If I go Giroud, I've got to get rid of an Arsenal player, so it probably will be Shane Long for the differential. I mean, he's going to play, and I think Southampton will score goals, and he's done very well. So because I can't get Tadic or Mane in, it might well be Long up front for me. My back four looks all right. I should do all right. I've got 2 United players, so home to Bournemouth, that should be a clean sheet. So I should have a nice steady end of the season and maybe push into the top 25k if I'm lucky. I've no idea what my rank is. we'll have a look when the Scoutcast is finished. Thanks so much, gentlemen, for joining me tonight and throughout the season. It's been great having 4 of us on there. I think halfway through the season we thought, well, we'll inflate it. We'll go up to 4 and see how it goes, and it's worked really well. It's made for longer Scoutcasts. It's made for good discussions though, and some great Scoutcasts over the season. I think the chips have kept our interest going as well, and that's really helped. And I think it's been a punishing season, but an interesting one. And I look forward to all 3 of you joining me next season when day 1 it's going to be suit time, suit and tie. Get that suit and tie out, Joe. Keep that on, Andy, till August, and yeah, get into your wardrobe, Luke, and pick one of your whistling flutes. It's a good night from me.
Good night from me.
Good night from me.
Good night.
Good night, all.